Hi, everybody, and welcome to this third part of the webinar series on Project Discover. We are going to focus a little bit more about understanding and how we manage the data sets under the Project Discover itself. But before we jump into that, for those who haven't necessarily followed the first two parts of the series, let me introduce to you what Project Discover is about. Sorry, the confidentiality disclaimer, the classic one. Okay, so let me introduce to you what process mining is about. Process mining in general is a set of techniques of mining techniques, data mining techniques, more specifically, that analyze your operational systems. As we are talking about your ERP system, your emails, or anything that basically can produce a set of logging information, those event logs. We talk about event because they are basically based on three main important features, or let's say data into it. One is the time, of course, the name of that event, and if there is any kind of correlation ID, or what we usually call a case ID. Okay. From there, we are going to be able to guess what is the real process. So how those activities are linked between each other through that correlation ID in a timely manner, okay? And therefore we can guess the processes, we can guess the various path, as we refer as being variance. And the case itself, so the whole life cycle of a particular ID, what happened from the beginning of this life cycle to the end, or if it stopped inadvertently and that kind of things. For that, we created a project called Project Discover. Project Discover is a combination of various tools being brought by TIBCO and a number of integration done by our group to link those capabilities all together, and that lives on our TIBCO Cloud offering. It's comprised of a very analytic-centric tool that provides process to stakeholders in a single place to identify or quantify bottlenecks, to also visualize KPIs and inefficiencies across your lines of businesses. And of course, we do support visual explorations of cases, variants, and various data. But most importantly, and that's probably one of the main goals of process mining, is to check your compliance. How much do you deviate from the reality, from what you have designed as your process model, your business processes, and how that compliance match between each other, and how you can remediate to correct or take corrections or actions in order to fulfill that compliance. How does that work? It's comprised of two main systems. One is your operational system. So that is basically where your logs are being produced. Okay. So this can come from any kind of applications, cloud applications, databases, of course, data lakes, software as a service, if you are thinking like things like Salesforce, stuff like that. Basically, what it needs is to produce some event logs. So anything which is able to generate event logs, and that also includes, let's say, IoT devices, for example, are eligible to or qualify to represent a process in the end. On the other side, we have this Project Discover that offers to you a UI in order you can analyze and document all your processes. It uses data mapping to determine how the process mining attributes. It runs a set of AI and process mining algorithms against the data. This is how we discover things. And then after, we leave you the ability to basically explore those processes, to quantify things, to report on those issues, and eventually raise through a kind of a case management built-in system to resolve improvements, request, or compliance cases at any time. For the dataset itself, say the first part we need to manage when it comes to process mining is the data. And we introduce a notion of data sets that I will demonstrate in a couple of minutes. But just before we go into the demonstration itself, let me talk about how it works behind the scene. So we have the UI, the Project Discover UI, that is making a REST call basically to a dataset microservice running on our side. We just received a kind of a JSON payload, which is basically where your file is being located, and a number of settings. How do we parse your file? How do we understand your file? And eventually is schema and attributes and mappings and various, let's say, metadata informations. Once this is gathered, we send all this to the core microservice, which is here and act as a kind of orchestrator. We relies heavily on TIBCO data visualization, and now we come at the end why it's useful to leverage such a solution like TIBCO data visualization. But we basically register the metadata into a Redis database, but we provision a view to get access to your data in TDV. We believe that TIBCO data virtualization is a way to have a global visibility over all your data, not the one just concerning the process mining, but every kind of data coming from anywhere, and we basically give you governance and control over this data. Once this view is being created, we simply launch a Spark job that applies a set of transformation and normalization against some data, get the initial findings like the profiling of your columns, how your data is being split over time, and all that kind of information that will be useful later for process mining usage, or to see if the quality of your data is good enough to move and carrying forward. And then finally, of course, we just write this binary file into a database that is ready to be consumed for the process mining algorithm just after. So let me go and jump into a demo. So as I said, Project Discover is available as a cloud software as a service solution. Okay, it just sits on TIBCO Cloud and is one of the numerous capabilities that we offer on TIBCO Cloud. And it welcomes you by this nicely welcome screen to get started. It's comprised of several menus, and the menus that we are going to focus today is on the dataset sections. So one of the first questions that comes up is usually how you create those datasets. Well, it's simply by going to adding that button to create a new dataset. I'm going to give a dataset name. Okay, well, let's say we are the 9th of November. We select which source we are looking into. So you can always reuse files that you already pre-uploaded a while ago. You can search through those files if you want to find things. Or you can also reuse TDV to get access to extra data, things from SAP, Salesforce, and various ERPs, or upload your own file. I'm going to upload my own file here. Just click on upload the file and then I'm good. Next. The next thing we are going to do is to preview how your file looks like. We try to guess automatically, especially when it's a CSV file, what are the various separator. But if you feel to the mood to actually change that to whatever you think reflects the way your CSV file is being built up, this is the screen where you can actually input those information. A couple of important things is that we support a set of encoding, the most widely used. Okay, say for anything which is Unix based, usually UTF-8 or UTF-16 is good. Otherwise, from the Windows world, you might use Windows 1252. You can select your code character, your escape characters, the numbers of rows you want to preview. Okay, just refresh and send you the number of rows you want. Okay, once you're happy with the way it's being presented, of course, if you change and you put the wrong thing, you see that the parsing doesn't work correctly. So you need to find the right separator. It usually gets it pretty well. The next thing is to give us some hints regarding the attributes. So the first thing we do is that we introspect your data to try to figure out which could be a timestamp, what could be, let's say, a number, a string, or whatever. This is quite important because it helps the way that how we do profile the data and which column could be used to do what later when we are doing the mapping for the process mining. For example, if you are looking for a case timestamp, you expect that that column will hold some timestamp information in particular format. So we try to auto-guess most of the things by itself, but if it needs some additional corrections, then you can actually correct it the way you want, okay, by selecting the type of attribute. So we basically fall into 4 categories: string, integer, numeric for everything which is look like a number, but which is not an integer, and of course timestamp. Timestamp does include also just simply dates if you have dates. Next thing, important thing, is to input the date format. This is where most of the errors are coming from when you are managing the datasets. It's important because the way we pass the date, we pass the time, and that time is a critical column when it comes to process mining, because it's actually defined the order of the events itself and the order of the way the case is being executed. So here in this example, we can use several things. Say we can use DD, that's for the day, this is for the month, this is for the year. We do apply the Java regex pattern on that. So you need to fulfill that schema. Once you're happy with the schema, you have a kind of system that actually validates that type format against the first 100 rows or so. Then next, you confirm and you're finished. You see this progression is actually showing what I was describing a couple of minutes ago through the slide that was the behind the scene. The first thing is that you create a dataization endpoint to your data, so that data can be consumed across the rest of your system, not only from our tool, but also from a perspective to use other tools. Let's say you just want to use TIBCO Spotfire against the data sets and want to analyze and see the data, or you have a broader view and want to element, let's say, a data lake or any kind of data lake strategy you will have in your company. This is making possible because all those things are being exposed through TIBCO data virtualization. All TIBCO product does include, or most of them, a tight integration with TIBCO data virtualization. So the data is easy to be consumed from anywhere and everywhere, at least with TIBCO products. Okay, once this is done, it takes usually between a minute to actually load the data and write the data into the database. Okay. So now the data is available, okay. Fresh here. Less a minute ago, this says the data set, and that data set is ready. It contains a number of information, and that thing is available to be processed into the process analysis part to actually do some process mining on top of that. Give me a second. Okay. So that covered the most of our demo of today. We have a number of key resources that you might be interested in look into. One is our fabulous customer story with Invitalia. Invitalia is an investment organism in Italy responsible to actually provide money for startups or large company in order to sustain innovation for Italia. We have also a solution page where you will find how process mining solution could be used for your own purpose. And of course, the page of the project itself, Project Discover. More resources for those who want. The TIBCO Labs program in general, everything we do regarding innovation at TIBCO and with our customers. And some key takeaway. So Project Discover is a process mining solution built on TIBCO Connected Intelligence Platform. So it's a SaaS product, easy to consume, easy to get in, easy to register and to try. Always make sure your files are into UTF-8. That's the best advice we could provide because it's make easy to overcome any encoding issues. Try to avoid any funky names for columns. We try to do our best to normalize the column names and to support a number of combinations, but not everything is being supported, especially things like dot in the column name, simply because it's a reserved word for SQL or even for Spark. Also treat your dates format carefully because the system is quite sensitive to those dates. And thank you.